Greetings and salutations, everyone. Welcome to today's video. I'm going to be doing something a little bit different that I'm going to get in the habit of trying to do a little bit more often here, especially when we're talking about things that I don't know really well, and that is going to be a build review and checking out other people's builds on the forums. And we're going to start off with a person that I think needs no introduction, Strimtom. Strimtom is one of the more prolific DDO streamers, YouTubers, forum poster for builds, so on and so forth. Friend of mine, and yeah, I needed help on a build. I had some goals in mind, and I had no idea what to do. So somebody recommended this build in the chat, and I went, sure, why not? Let's do it. And it made me start thinking that this would be a nice opportunity to do a build review for somebody else's build. So if you're interested, and I'll try to remember to link this in the video, this is Strimtom's tried and tested hardcore viable ranger for all your hardcore needs. Yes, quite the mouthful, Strimtom. But we're going to go over my impressions, what little tweaks and twists that I put on it. But if you're interested, like I said, I'll try to get it linked in the video. So let's take a look at the ins and outs of this thing in general. So first of all, it is a Tempest Ranger melee Scourge build that has quite a few points dipped into Falconry. Now, I get a little bit more action points to play with than people who are normally putting this build together, because I have a bunch of racial lives done, and this goes really deep into the racial life tree for some Aasimar Scourge stuff. In fact, all 17 of these points are recommended in the build, which means we'll be losing 17 points someplace else. I believe mostly up here at the top of the Falconry tree, and these over here in the Arcane Archer and Fate Arc Illusionist tree. So, again, this means that I've done a little bit of tweaking to the build. I think most of the core ideas are there. And overall, I did my best to kind of like follow what the guide said, and watching these watching its videos. And like I said, with a couple of tweaks here and there, depending on how I like to play, as well as spending the extra action points, I feel like things are pretty good. So let's just glance through things. Like I said, we have 17 action points in the Aasimar Scourge. That's primarily there to go up the greater weapon tree and Destroyer of the Undead. Seems pretty obvious, right? Infinite Lay on Hands, although over a little bit of time, still works out to be like your primary self-healing, generally your primary healing of others, which did a lot of work over the last couple of days for me personally. As well as the occasional, I need an undead killed right the hell now. Boop, 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 boop. Not that happens very often, but it does happen. Then we, like I said, we have 42 points in Tempest Ranger. I don't think, no, he does. This is exactly how he has it laid out in the build. Overall, I was pretty pleased with this. It's possible that instead of taking these points in Fate Arc Illusionist and Arcane Archer to get in Fate Arc Illusionist, I could have spent those points over here to play with my improved mobility, or even potentially grab True Seam over here in the Falconry tree. I didn't think I'd need it, because I've been running around with True Seam up until I started moving into R10s, and then I realized I kind of would like some True Seam. Hey, thank you very much for the host, my friend. I appreciate it. Falconry tree. Falconry, he's got 23 points spent in the trees. I have 7 extra. So again, I'm assuming 3 here, 6 here. No, he's got Deadly Instinct 2. But no Mercy. So there's 3 points, 4 points, 5 points. I'm not sure what else we're missing. But long story short, I'm enjoying these, the full no Deadly Instinct and the full No Mercy. I do feel like when something's held, it dies very, very fast. Or when I can make something helpless by blinding it, it dies very, very fast. when I can't do those things, it's a little bit more of a drudge. And then my extra points, I wanted to be able to take You've Got My Back out of the Fate Arc Illusionist tree. However, Fate Arc Illusionist requires you to have taken what is it? Magical power? Magical something? Some sort of magical prereq. Actually, you know what? I can find it right over here. Magical training to have this prereq. And that puts a little bit of damper on things if you're following somebody else's build and they have a nice feat list for you here to take and you're just experimenting with exactly their layout. You don't get to play around very much with things. So I found a way to go ahead and going through Arcane Archer to take magical training. But that took 4 points investment. So by taking those 4 points here in Arcane Archer, I did not have the action points to kind of go into Fate Arc Illusionist that I wanted to. I could see making a feat swap somewhere to make this much easier. And if that's the case, then we could definitely get Bend Light and You've Got My Back, I think, very easily. When I originally kind of came up with this plan on the fly, I thought that the first tier gave you magical training. Incorrect. Failed my reading test. But it worked out pretty nicely. The other thing that I did differently is somewhere in the feat line, he took a feat that I was not in love with. Oh, at level 18, Strimtom has toughness, which makes a lot of sense for where the build was built for, which is a hardcore server, but I swapped it out for completionist. So those are like the main changes that I made. Pretty much, otherwise I followed the build exactly, and this is my overall review. If you're gonna get one line out of this build, this is it. This is the one line. If you're playing this for the hardcore server, Strimtom's build I feel like is spot on. So if you're playing a First Life Scourge and you want to jump on these guide rails and run to the end, get your 5,000 favor, do all the things that are important to you, this build is excellent at that. 10 out of 10. Would potentially do on the hardcore server if you wanted to play a build along these lines and be a melee on the hardcore server. Now, being somebody who doesn't play melees very often, or certainly not this kind of melee, and in fact, two-freeing a couple of things, right? So on one hand, I want to get my Aasimar lives done. I am working on some what is this sphere called? The Divine Karma Sphere, past lives. So I kind of wanted to be in Divine Crusader, for leveling up, stuff like that. The build has some pretty big holes in it for me and how I play and what I'm trying to do. First of all, I am a person that thrives on the ability to take care of traps. I feel like it's a key part of the flexibility for the build, to be able to do that. You're pure 20 levels of Tempest goodness. You don't have room for that. You can't splash a level of Wizard of Rogue, a level of Wizard or a level of Artie and just be like, whee, I've got traps now. Because you're giving up quite a bit in Dervish here. 25% double strike with your offhand, a bunch of melee power, some MMR, some PRR. Like, that's a lot. And again, that's a trade-off you're going to have to consider whether it's worth it to you or not, to have access to traps. For me, it probably will be, but for you, I don't know. So yeah, that's something. And then also, I found it really challenging to get weapons that I felt were good and viable for cheap. So one of the comments I've been getting on the stream lately is, why don't you just build X weapon? Or why don't you just have Y weapons? And the reason is, one, I'm not going to be playing this build for very long. If I do everything right, it'll probably be, let's see, it's been about 1 week of July, or sorry, not July, January. And we are... Let's see, we have another week, so half of January and probably 3 weeks in February, so maybe 5 weeks to knock out my Aasimar lives and double up all the epic lives and first times and stuff like that. I just, for less than a month or less than 2 months, I just don't feel like it's worth it to like craft a green steel Morning Star or Mace or something. I just don't. I don't spend that much time in the plus level 29 range. Usually there's like one good day of doing R8s plus. Like last night, for example, we did a bunch of R10s. And I kind of used a bunch of fluff gear. That being said, if you're like me and you do have a lot of like miscellaneous junk from the years, you might have extra Tome of Legend page books laying around. And if that's the case, I got a lot of value. Where are they? I got a lot of value after turning those in for like Philosopher's Stones or Philosopher... Nope, that's not them. Where are they? Yeah, here they are. For a Coronation and a Philosopher. Those are Tome of Legend books, things. They did really well for me at level 14, all the way to 20. I felt like they were fine. But that's an expensive jump-in point for a lot of people, especially in the hardcore server. Where even though these things are a little bit more available because people are doing those content a little bit more and are willing to sell them on the auction house or the shard exchange for pretty cheap. On the live servers, unless you already have a big buildup of stuff, it may not be for you. However, at level 20, you can jump into like the Epic Ethereal Morningstar or whatever the other one's called. I don't even know. Because you don't actually need Ghost Touch with the Aasimar Scourge, so you could do something else. But I felt like Weakening Undead, Impactful, and Ghostbane were valuable buffs for me. The other thing that I was able to do was I moved my Sentience Gem over. I don't know if this is exactly correct, but in my mind, I didn't want to have a big investment. My big investment item is like my spellcasting stick at 29. So I'd like something for melee, for screwing around. So I just made this 5-piece. It's got 2 next falls in it. One's for melee power and the other one's for attack and damage. And then I just slammed together a long shadow, attack and damage, dexterity, and reflex. Just to have something together. I felt like those 2 things kind of added up to a reasonable filigree set for level 20 to level 29 with not a lot of investment. A little bit of extra damage coming in, a little bit of extra melee attack power, a little bit of more damage here and there. So like it felt good, but it did get outpaced very quickly in those Reaper 10s. And part of that just has to do with the fact that they don't have a lot of flexibility in them when it comes for like damage reduction, bypassing, and stuff like that. I also went ahead and I slotted some rubies in them. I believe they're slotted with Eyes of Force. These are old ones that I pulled out of previous weapons. So it felt like a minimal investment. On the hardcore server, you may not be as interested in spending DDO points. I personally feel like the hardcore server earns a lot of points, so it feels like a fine time to invest in a little bit for survivability. That's up to you. Do what you like. The other thing that I personally felt like was a challenge is that, especially on like the Aasimar Scourge or Melee Life in general, when you're level 15 and you put on your Sharn set, it's like it feels really great. When you're level 27 and you're still using that same Sharn set, it doesn't feel as great. If you do everything right, it doesn't take you that long to get there, though. You can move through it very quickly. So it kind of makes up for it a little bit. But it would be nice if there was a couple of gear set upgrades along the way that made sense. Again, I'm not taking the time to invest in this frame for 40 lives. If you're going to be doing this frame for several lives in a row, you might want to invest in something like this. Let's see. Were there anything else that really like stood out as problematic? No, I think that's basically it. I said overall, I enjoyed it. It did a lot of good work for me, and I could see it being really successful in the hardcore server. Again, especially if you are looking to be like in the Divine Crusader tree. I feel like every time I slap down a concentration, yeah, whatever. I don't even care. Every time I didn't even max this out. Oh man, I need to move some points around and max this bad boy out. Maybe that would even help even more. Every time that I would throw this down, it felt really solid. Especially if something happened to be held. If you get 4 or 5 guys held with a mass hold monster, and you slap down a circle and you just go to town, it feels great. Oh, I remember something else now. I really was excited to play with Mass Frog. And granted, again, you look at my stats, they're not amazing. I don't have an artifact for wisdom. I don't have a lot of the stuff that you would normally be interested in this kind of build. But it landed very, very little. But I had fun with it. I don't think it's something that I would invest in heavily. Also, for a hardcore server character, having 2 filled out destinies already seems tough. That seems like a change that I would consider. Also, we took epic reflexes at level 27. My reflex isn't that great. It is nice to not fail on a 1, but because it was a 1. But when you have to roll a relatively high number to pass the save anyway, it doesn't make sense. Again, for your 5,000 favor on the hardcore server, I think this build could really make some headway, especially if you can find some sort of easy to get mid-range level set of maces. I don't know if that exists, or maces, morning stars, whatever. I don't know if that exists, but if it does, it would be really good. It'd be really good. Alright everybody, thanks for watching the video. If you enjoyed it, please hit the like, subscribe, follow buttons. Don't forget that I am on Twitch live every single Monday through Thursday. It used to be every day, but it's not every day anymore. And I do check out the comments and all that stuff. I do appreciate it. Thank you, Strimtom, for the build. I will probably be switching to... I'm going to follow another Strimtom build coming up very, very soon. And it's going to be this guy. The Tempest Rangers for all folks new and old, or old and new, R10 viable. This guy, this is a strength-based one. I think this is going to be much better for what it is that I'm trying to do. And I don't know, I'm excited to give it a shot. So, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys soon. Toodles!